2025, Ouagadougou, the air in the presidential villa was unusually still, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood before a wide bay window, his reflection barely visible against the gathering dusk. Outside, the capital flickered in gold and red beneath a setting sun that knew nothing of betrayal. Behind him, the scent of hibiscus tea steeping in a silver pot lingered like an unspoken question. A discreet knock tapped at the heavy oak doors. "Let him in," Ibrahim said calmly, not turning. The doors opened with the soft groan of age. A soldier stepped in, straight-backed, silent, eyes forward, then motioned behind him. Colonel Alassane Doumbia entered slowly, as if walking into a courtroom where he wasn't sure whether he was the judge or the condemned. He had once been Ibrahim's most trusted officer. During the coup that had propelled Ibrahim into power, it was Doumbia who had coordinated the perimeter defense of the compound. It was Doumbia who had taken a bullet meant for Ibrahim's convoy 2 years ago. And it was Doumbia, according to a classified dossier received 3 nights prior, who had recently met with foreign agents in Bamako. Ibrahim gestured to the low table where 2 cups waited beside the pot of tea. "Sit." Doumbia hesitated, just enough for Ibrahim to notice. He sat across from the captain, posture stiff. His eyes didn't meet Ibrahim's. Instead, they darted toward the tea. Ibrahim smiled faintly. "Relax, Colonel. The tea is not poisoned. If I wanted you dead, we would not be having tea. We would be cleaning blood from these tiles." Doumbia gave a weak chuckle that never reached his eyes. They sat in silence for a long moment as Ibrahim poured the steaming tea, deliberately. Ritualistically. "You know," Ibrahim said, handing a cup to Doumbia, "there's something I find fascinating about betrayal." Doumbia took the cup. His fingers trembled slightly. Ibrahim continued, "It always comes from those close enough to know where to aim." The statement hung between them like the steam rising from their cups. Doumbia finally spoke. "Captain, No titles tonight," Ibrahim interrupted. "Just 2 men, sitting across from each other. Like old friends. Like brothers." Doumbia swallowed hard. "Then let me speak as a brother." "You may." He placed the tea on the table and leaned forward. "I didn't betray you. Whatever you've heard, it's not what it seems." Ibrahim didn't blink. "You met with French advisors in Bamako. That much is confirmed. And you received a transfer of funds into your cousin's account. Funds traced back to a shell company managed by—" "I know how it looks," Doumbia said, more desperately now. "But it wasn't betrayal. It was insurance. They approached me. Told me things. Said you were planning to dissolve the transitional council and rule alone." Ibrahim raised an eyebrow. "And you believed them?" "I didn't know what to believe. Everything's changing so fast. Ministers disappearing, purges in the intelligence wing. I thought, what if they're right? What if you've changed?" Ibrahim looked away, eyes scanning the horizon. The city stretched below, vulnerable and flickering like a candle about to go out. "When you were 12, he said softly, you watched your uncle get shot by the militia. You told me you'd never serve power that used fear as its only weapon. I believed you then." Doumbia opened his mouth, then closed it. Ibrahim's voice hardened. "But now I wonder. When did fear start whispering louder than loyalty?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the tea had gone cold. "Ibrahim," Doumbia said, barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to take the money. I just wanted to be ready. In case things went bad." Ibrahim leaned in, voice calm but cutting. "Things did go bad, Alassane. You made sure of it." There it was, the sting beneath the surface. The moment the truth peeled itself open, raw and irreversible. A distant explosion echoed across the city. Neither man flinched. "Was that part of your plan too?" Ibrahim asked. Doumbia's face paled. "What?" 2 trucks just went up near the northern checkpoint. Your units were scheduled to patrol there tonight. But they didn't. Why is that? Dumbia stammered, then shut his eyes. I told them to stand down. Why? Because I didn't want them caught in the crossfire. I didn't know what the French were planning. I didn't want them. Collateral damage, Ibrahim finished, voice like ice. That's what my soldiers are to you now. Dumbia gripped the edge of the table. I never wanted anyone to die. But they did, Ibrahim said. And you were the reason. Dumbia buried his face in his hands. Outside, sirens began to wail faintly in the distance. Ibrahim stood slowly. Walked to a cabinet. Opened it. Retrieved a file, thick, heavy, stamped with red ink. He placed it on the table in front of Dumbia. What's this? A choice, Ibrahim said. Inside is everything I have on you, recordings, bank transfers, intercepted calls. Enough to end you. Dumbia stared at it like it might catch fire. But I'm not interested in revenge, Ibrahim continued. Not yet. Dumbia looked up, confused. I want something more difficult, Ibrahim said. I want your truth. On paper. In your own words. Names. Motives. Every whisper you've heard. Dumbia's eyes narrowed. And if I refuse? Ibrahim picked up his teacup. Sipped. Then I let the people decide. Dumbia looked down at the file. Then back at Ibrahim. And in that pause, in that moment before either man could speak again, the lights flickered. And the compound's power went out. Darkness swallowed the room like a tide. Only the faint red glow of the emergency battery cast long shadows across Ibrahim's face. He didn't flinch. His eyes remained locked on Dumbia, who now looked like a man staring into the barrel of judgment. The villa's silence deepened, a kind of heavy stillness that came when electricity was stripped from power and certainty. Somewhere beyond the walls, the compound's backup generators coughed to life, sputtered, then fell silent again. Ibrahim placed his teacup down with surgical precision. That's not just a power cut. Dumbia's voice cracked. This wasn't me. Ibrahim stood. His silhouette loomed tall, commander-like, outlined in crimson gloom. I believe you. Dumbia blinked. You do? I believe you're not the one pulling the trigger. Ibrahim walked toward a narrow panel on the wall, lifted the emergency comm handset, and listened. Dead silence. Lines are down, he muttered. Dumbia rose too, panic flickering in his eyes. Who would do this now? Who would dare? Ibrahim turned slowly. Who benefits most from chaos right as we sit down for this conversation? Dumbia's lips parted, but no words came. They planned to time it, Ibrahim said, thinking aloud now. They knew you'd be here. They wanted to erase both of us. You, the disloyal insider. Me, the immovable symbol. A loud crack rang from the courtyard, gunfire. Not distant anymore. Ibrahim walked to the cabinet, opened a hidden panel, and removed a compact pistol. The weight of it seemed to calm him, as if death in his hand restored balance to the world. Stay here, he said. But Dumbia reached out. Ibrahim, wait. If they're already inside, you can't go alone. Ibrahim turned his head, studied the man who once called him brother. His face was tight with calculation. Now you want to protect me? Ibrahim asked coldly. No. I want to protect what's left of my honor, Dumbia said. The words hung like the last rope over a ravine. Fragile. Fraying. Another shot. Closer now. Screams followed. A guard's radio squawked and cut off mid-transmission. I don't need your loyalty, Ibrahim said finally, I need your confession. Dumbia clenched his jaw. Then give me a pen. And 10 minutes. If I'm going to burn my sins onto paper, I'll do it properly. Ibrahim stared. Then nodded. He pulled a leather-bound notebook from the drawer and placed it beside the file. A pen followed. Then he moved to the door. Doumbia called out, "You'll come back?" Ibrahim looked over his shoulder. "You have my word. But if I don't, burn it. And make sure the right people read it." With that, he vanished into the dark hallway. The corridor was lit only by flickering wall sconces. Ibrahim moved like a shadow through his own palace. Echoes of shouted orders, barked commands, and bootsteps clashed down the halls. He turned a corner and came face to face with Sergeant Wemba, blood on his collar, a fresh cut on his cheek. "Captain," the sergeant gasped. Multiple assailants breached through the northern gate. They disabled the power manually. "How many?" "7, maybe more. But they're not amateurs. They're not shouting, they're not rushing, they're hunting." Ibrahim's mind shifted into combat leadership. "Secure the comms room. That's their likely target." "Yes, sir." "And Wemba," Ibrahim added, "if you find the guard from checkpoint 2, he stood down tonight. Bring him to me." Wemba nodded and vanished like smoke. Ibrahim headed toward the situation room, his central command hub. But he paused. Something gnawed at him. These weren't rebels. Not local militias. Too clean. Too quiet. Foreign fingerprints. He stepped inside the situation room. Dead. 2 officers lay sprawled. One had been shot point blank. The other was missing his sidearm. The backup comm equipment had been stripped clean. Then he heard it, faint footsteps, not in the hallway but above him. On the roof. He turned off the room's emergency light and waited in darkness. Then, a soft thud, the sound of someone dropping into the hallway. A tall figure, dressed in matte black gear, crept past the door. Silenced weapon. No insignia. Ibrahim raised his pistol, breathed in, and pulled the trigger. The man dropped instantly. No cry. No movement. Silence again. He stepped over the body, leaned down, and pulled back the man's mask. European. Late 30s. Not local. As he stared at the stranger's lifeless face, something clicked. The tea. The blackout. The betrayal. This wasn't about a confession. It was a setup. Doumbia was the lure. And Ibrahim had sat down willingly. Back in the room, Doumbia's hands trembled as he wrote. The candle beside him flickered violently. The ink stained the pages with raw names, twisted motives, secret meetings, truths that would implode the fragile alliances barely holding the country together. Then he heard something. Not from the hall, from beneath the floor. A whisper. A vibration. He stood. Moved to the far end of the room. Tapped along the floor tiles. Hollow. He knelt and pried open a concealed panel. Inside, a tunnel, one he didn't know existed. At that exact moment, the door creaked open. Ibrahim stood there, blood on his sleeve, eyes sharp and steady. "We were wrong," Ibrahim said. Doumbia looked up. "What?" "This wasn't about you. Or even me." He walked in and shut the door. "This was about wiping the slate." Doumbia nodded slowly. "And now? We finish the story," Ibrahim said. "Together." He handed him the pistol. Then looked down at the open tunnel beneath the floor. "I think it's time we use the exits they thought we didn't know about." As they descended into the darkness, the villa shook again, this time from an explosion that rattled even the foundation. Above them, the compound was being erased. But below, 2 men, one betrayed, the other betrayer, moved deeper into the unknown. The emergency tunnel sloped downward, built decades ago during another regime, for another man who also feared betrayal. Now, it groaned under the weight of new sins. Ibrahim led with slow, deliberate steps. His hand brushed the crumbling stone wall, counting paces, listening for echoes, a soldier's rhythm etched into muscle memory. Behind him, Doumbia followed silently, his fingers gripping the confession notebook tighter than the pistol. Only the dim, flickering light from Ibrahim's wrist lamp guided them. "This tunnel," Doumbia whispered, his voice swallowed by the stone. It's not on any map I've seen. It wasn't meant to be, Ibrahim replied. Only 2 living men knew of it. Until now. Dumbia hesitated. Why me? Because you were supposed to die with me tonight. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. They reached a fork. One path led deeper into shadow, the other toward faint rumbling, like machinery. Ibrahim paused. That sound, Dumbia said, is it? Yes, Ibrahim said grimly. The old power conduit. If we can reach it, we can override the grid and trigger the deadman relay. Dumbia stiffened. The relay? That sends the broadcast? Ibrahim nodded. Every piece of classified evidence, every name, every file tied to tonight, it'll go to every news station on the continent. They wanted silence. We'll give them thunder. For the first time, Dumbia saw something more than survival in Ibrahim's eyes. He saw vengeance dressed in honor. They turned toward the rumbling corridor, but the tunnel trembled violently, a blast rocked the structure from above. Dust rained from the ceiling. Pipes groaned. Lights flickered. Then, shouting. Not echoes. Not imagined. Voices. Men. Dropping into the tunnel behind them. They found the hatch, Dumbia gasped. Ibrahim pulled him forward. We're too close to stop. They sprinted through the dark curve of the tunnel, footsteps echoing, shadows dancing ahead. The air grew hotter, tighter, thick with the smell of oil and wire. Finally, a rusted steel door appeared. Ibrahim punched a keypad. Red light. Wrong code. He tried again. Another failure. Behind them, voices grew louder. Closer. Then the unmistakable sound of boots hitting concrete. Dumbia raised his pistol. I'll hold them. Ibrahim didn't look back. You're not dying a martyr in a place like this. Give me the notebook. Dumbia handed it over without protest. Then he stepped beside Ibrahim. One more code. Beep. Green light. The door hissed open. They stumbled inside a cavernous, humid room filled with analog panels, backup servers, and humming cables that looked like veins feeding the bones of a dying regime. This is it. Dumbia breathed. It's not pretty, but it's real, Ibrahim replied, already moving to the main terminal. He inserted a warn card. The screen blinked to life, revealing an old login system patched in Cyrillic, a relic from a Soviet-era intelligence network repurposed for truth. Dumbia turned toward the door. They're coming. Just hold them for 2 minutes, Ibrahim said. That's all I need. Dumbia took a deep breath. After this, if we survive, what happens to me? Ibrahim didn't answer. Not because he didn't know. But because forgiveness was a currency he hadn't decided how to spend yet. Outside the door, 3 figures moved down the tunnel. Their armor was mismatched, silent. Mercenaries. Not government. Not local. Well-paid and unconcerned with legacy. The leader stopped at the sealed door and gave a nod. One of them knelt, set charges. Inside, the terminal beeped. File transfer in progress. Ibrahim inserted the second card. Facial scan engaged. The machine scanned him. Accepted. Broadcast ready, it blinked. Final confirmation, Y/N. Ibrahim's finger hovered. Then Dumbia shouted, down. The blast ripped through the door, sending fire and dust across the chamber. Metal screeched. One mercenary stumbled through, rifle up. Dumbia fired twice. Missed once. Hit center mass on the second. Another followed, taller, faster. He tackled Dumbia. The 2 slammed into the ground. Ibrahim didn't look back. He hit Y. The terminal blinked, transmitting. Outside, servers roared awake like beasts from a long slumber. A deep, thrumming pulse echoed through the floor. Encrypted signals shot like arrows to satellites, bouncing across continents. From newsrooms to embassies, phones buzzed. Files decrypted. Incriminating evidence, voice recordings, video files, all marked Operation Silence, classified. And in the middle of it, a single photo. Doumbia and a European handler, shaking hands. The final mercenary lunged forward, blade in hand. Ibrahim turned just in time to block it with the butt of his weapon. The two men crashed into the console. Sparks flew. The mercenary raised the blade again, then suddenly froze. Blood poured down his chest. Doumbia stood behind him, the smoking pistol in his hands. Then he collapsed, breathing hard, holding his side. Bleeding. Ibrahim rushed to him. "You're hit." Doumbia smiled bitterly. "I was hit the moment I took that meeting in Bamako." They both sat in the silence. Only the hum of the server remained. "You didn't have to come back for me," Doumbia said. "I didn't," Ibrahim replied. "I came back for the confession. You just happened to still be alive." They both chuckled, a tired, cracked sound between men who had too many ghosts. Then Ibrahim reached into his jacket and pulled out a small thermos. He opened it. Steam rose. Doumbia raised an eyebrow. "Tea?" "I promised you tea," Ibrahim said, pouring a cup. "It's tradition to share a final cup before justice." Doumbia sipped. "Hot. Bitter." "That's the point," Ibrahim replied. The console buzzed again, confirmation. Broadcast complete. And somewhere above them, the world began to change. Morning broke not in golden silence, but with the buzz of 1,000 phones and the crackle of stunned radio hosts struggling to grasp what had just flooded the networks. Across Burkina Faso, citizens awoke to images and voices no one expected to hear, encrypted files, intelligence reports, and hidden footage dumped into the public sphere without warning. There were videos of foreign diplomats meeting with military officers, documents showing payments from Western companies to key ministers, intercepted voice messages plotting Ibrahim's assassination. And in the center of it all, a solemn photo of Colonel Alassane Doumbia shaking hands with a man wearing mirrored sunglasses and a European coat of arms. The government denied everything. Then resigned. Ibrahim Traoré's name was suddenly on every screen. Not as a coup leader. Not as a military man. But as the man who'd ripped the veil off a sleeping nation and said, "Look for yourself." And he wasn't even at the capital anymore. Underground, the servers hummed a little softer now, their task complete. The compound above had stopped burning. Soldiers loyal to Ibrahim, having pieced together the truth from the broadcasts, had arrived and secured the perimeter. The foreign mercenaries were gone or dead. The cleanup had begun. In the dim corridor just outside the control room, Ibrahim crouched beside Doumbia, who lay against the wall, his shirt soaked in blood, breath ragged. "You're going to make it," Ibrahim said. "You're a worse liar than I am," Doumbia muttered, trying to smile. Ibrahim didn't laugh. Instead, he reached into his satchel and pulled out a sealed envelope. "What's that?" "Your confession," Ibrahim replied. "Your real one. The one you wrote. It's not part of the broadcast." Doumbia frowned. "Why not?" "Because this country needs truth, not a scapegoat." Doumbia blinked. "So, what happens now?" "You live," Ibrahim said, "as a man who saved the country after nearly selling it." He placed the envelope in Doumbia's hands. "Betrayal," Ibrahim said, "does not end a man. It just reveals him." Doumbia closed his eyes. "And if the people don't forgive me?" "They won't," Ibrahim said quietly. "Not today. But someday, they might remember the second half of your story." Sirens wailed in the distance, not screams this time, but the organized chorus of loyalist units reclaiming the city. Ibrahim stood, glanced toward the exit. "You'll be taken to the hospital," he said. "But after that, exile." Doumbia nodded weakly. "I deserve that." "No," Ibrahim said. "You deserve the burden of remembering everything you almost destroyed." When Ibrahim emerged from the tunnel an hour later, flanked by elite guards, cameras were already waiting. Journalists from all over West Africa. Civil leaders. Foreign observers. The people. His uniform was blood-stained. His face gaunt from fatigue. But his posture was unbent, his gaze level. They asked a dozen questions at once. He answered none. He raised a single hand and spoke into the microphone. This was not an act of heroism, he said. It was survival. For myself. For this nation. Silence. I have no desire to rule a country where truth is buried. Where leaders fear their own shadows. I do not want a throne built on silence. He paused. But let no man mistake our patience for weakness again. We will not be ruled from across the sea. Not with bribes. Not with blackmail. And not with bullets. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted to record. I have one message for those watching from foreign capitals, Ibrahim continued. If you come to Africa bearing gifts in one hand and poison in the other, know this, we are no longer blind. Thunderous applause erupted. But behind his eyes, Ibrahim saw only smoke and names, friends lost, men corrupted, loyalties shattered. The price of truth was always blood. He finished the speech with a whisper only the microphones caught. This is the last time I drink tea with a traitor. That night, in a quiet apartment above a clinic in Dakar, a nurse sat with a heavily sedated Doumbia. He would live. But his name had become a myth already, the man who nearly sold the nation, and then helped save it. And on the table beside his bed lay a single envelope with no return address. Inside, one handwritten line. Remember the taste of that tea. In Paris, a junior intelligence officer burst into a restricted meeting room, face pale. Sir, he said to his superior, he released the files. All of it. The man at the head of the table, a silver-haired diplomat, exhaled slowly. And what did we learn? The officer hesitated. That Traoré knows more than we thought. No, the man said with a wry smile. We learned that he is not afraid of dying. And that, my friend, is a very dangerous man to betray. In the weeks that followed, embassies issued denials. Ministers gave up their posts. Protests turned to celebrations. And Ibrahim Traoré, still young, still hunted by powerful enemies, stood alone at the center of it all. He issued no arrest warrants. No vengeance lists. No televised trials. Just one order. We rebuild. But not all wounds could be fixed with cement and flags. Not all enemies came from abroad. And Ibrahim knew, the next attempt wouldn't be so clumsy. The next betrayer might offer him tea. 3 weeks later, the room was quiet again. The war room at the presidential villa had been repaired and repainted, but Ibrahim Traoré had insisted one thing remain untouched, the table where he had first sat with Doumbia. It still bore the faint scorch mark from the blackout, the faintest scratch where the pen had pressed too hard during the confession. And tonight, the table was set once more. 2 cups. 1 pot of tea. Steam curled upward, just like before. But across from him this time sat someone else. Fatoumata Kaboré, interim foreign affairs minister, leaned forward. Her tone was controlled, but her fingers tapped the porcelain. I still think you made a mistake, she said. Ibrahim gave no answer. Just poured her a cup and then one for himself. Doumbia lives, she continued. And every day he draws breath, there are whispers. That you spared him because you were complicit. That the whole thing was staged. That. People always fear what they can't control, Ibrahim said. And what they can't control, they poison with rumors. Still, the people want to see blood. Or justice. And right now, they don't see the difference. Ibrahim took a slow sip of his tea. Justice isn't always a blade. Sometimes it's memory. Shame. A long, heavy exile. Fatoumata stared at him. And you really believe that's enough? No, he said quietly. But I believe revenge would have rotted something in me I might need later. She paused. And what would that be? Hope. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the clink of the cups. Outside, the winds carried distant sounds of celebration. Streets were still alive from the recovery effort. Youth groups repainting schools. Former soldiers planting crops. An unexpected breath of unity had rippled across the nation, fragile, yes, but real. You were right, Fatimata said at last. We had to show the world. Expose the strings. Ibrahim nodded. And now we must make sure they don't just attach new puppets. She reached into her folder and placed a document before him. It was stamped with the emblem of a neighboring state, a letter of diplomatic inquiry. Veiled language. Offers of aid. Infrastructure. Advisors. Beneath it, a handwritten note from the new French envoy. A shared vision. A better future. Let us begin again. Ibrahim didn't even look at it. They always come with better futures in envelopes. Fatimata folded her arms. And yet you're keeping the meeting. I am, he said. But not here. Her eyebrows raised. Where, then? Under a tree. She blinked. I beg your pardon. I've invited their envoy to a small village outside Kédougou. No power. No guards. No press. Why? Ibrahim smiled thinly. Because in rooms like this, men forget who they are. But under the open sky, people remember truth. Fatimata leaned forward. And if they try something? They won't, Ibrahim said. Not again. Not with every village child knowing my face, and every farmer knowing the name of the man who gave them their land back. And if they do? Ibrahim looked her in the eyes. Then I'll offer them tea. The meeting under the tree was not televised. No guards. No translators. Just 2 chairs and a clay teapot. The French envoy, polite, rehearsed, tried to bring documents, gifts, gestures. Ibrahim refused them all. Instead, he poured him tea. And asked only one question. Why did you try to kill me? The envoy blinked. Captain, I wasn't even assigned here during that time. I represent a new chapter. Ibrahim raised his hand. I didn't ask for a denial. I asked for a reason. The envoy shifted, clearly uncomfortable. You were considered unpredictable. A populist. A wild card in a fragile region. So, your solution, Ibrahim said slowly, was destabilization. In the name of stability. The man swallowed. Ibrahim refilled his own cup. I'm going to offer you something now, he said. Not partnership. Not forgiveness. He leaned in. A second chance. The envoy tried to smile. I'm glad to hear. But not for you, Ibrahim cut in. For your nation. For your people. Just like mine deserve it. He stood. You may send advisors, Ibrahim said. But not spies. You may offer aid. But no conditions. If you build roads, let them lead to our schools, not your corporations. If you invest here, your profits stay here. If you make promises, keep them. The envoy sat frozen. Ibrahim extended a final cup of tea. This is not friendship, he said. This is warning, shaped like hospitality. He handed him the cup. The man took it with trembling fingers. If you betray me again, Ibrahim said, I will not smile next time. Later that night, back in the villa, Ibrahim stood alone in the hallway. The room was empty now. No betrayers. No ministers. Just quiet. He looked at the table where it had all begun. 2 cups. 1 truth. He poured the last of the tea down the sink. Then picked up the pot. Crushed it. Ceramic shattered across the counter, sharp and final. He turned away. From this moment forward, no one else would ever be offered tea again. Only terms. And those, he would write himself.